Hello, and welcome to The Source Within with Chloe Pedalino, where I share the source within me with hopes it sparks the source within thee. Okay, let's talk about ley lines. What are ley lines? Okay, so we're going to continue to understand Mother Earth a little bit more. So, Earth has these grids and lines that cross the entire planet, basically. And they are a network. It's basically like a network of meridians. So, I think in a prior episode I had mentioned how, we as humans in our human body have networks of meridians. We also have the seven chakras, but then in Chinese medicine and Eastern medicine, there's and when you think about like acupuncture, for example, there are meridian points all through our body. Okay, and they connect and communicate. Our body connects and communicates through these networks. So just as the human body has these kinds of things, is an energetic, has the energetic body, so does planet Earth. And they're called different things in different cultures, but essentially what you have are these ley lines. And in European or Western culture, we call them ley lines. In Asia, they're called ancient dragon lines. The Druids called them mystical lines. Aboriginal Australians call them sun lines or dream trails. And basically, these lines of energy connect all around the earth, and there are certain points where they crisscross or intersect, and those are called nodes or points. These nodes or points are like, they're energy centers. So similarly to, again, the human body, we have the energetic meridians and like, pressure points, for example, on the body. Like there are certain places where if you push a pressure, well, you can feel the alleviating, the relief in, multiple areas of your body, for example. So similarly, the earth has these energy centers that are where these nodes are and where there are overlap of these energetic lines. And the ley lines can, like, they're anywhere from like several feet to hundreds of feet to like thousands and thousands of miles. So it just kind of depends. So this network creates a biomagnetic energy field. So we've heard, I think, maybe some people have heard about Earth being a a magnetic entity, a magnetic being, and it certainly is. I mean, it has these lines and nodes, and this network, creates this biomagnetic energy field. And essentially they occur in, certain geographical occurrences happen in certain places where they can be found, like there's forks and springs or river groves or sea forks. There's also, aspects of mountains as well, that where they can come from. And I'll put more in the show notes as well about where I got some of this information. Matrix Unveiled was a podcast that I listened to, and they had really really a fascinating, lengthy but very fascinating conversation about ley lines as well. So I'll put more of this in the show notes. And one of the synchronicities that happened to me in Mount Shasta was randomly meeting this woman on a trail who told me about this speaker who happened to be in town for the night on my last night in Shasta, and I went and saw her, and her name's Dova. And she's a fascinating woman. She is from South Australia, and she at a young age like went out into the very vast desert in that area that has a lot of known, very, very, very ancient history. and she connected kind of with her Aboriginal ancient heritage there, and was able to literally listen to the earth and hear her vibrations and her song, the tones, the sounds from earth. And then she records them and creates these sounds so that people can listen and experience the energy of earth from those places where she records. So like at these sacred sites, and they're often, vortexes and things. So this was this cool fact, speaker that I just happened to stumble upon. And so she introduced this idea that I had not heard before, which is called a UVB, Unified Vector Geometry, which I guess are maps that exist of the planet and where all of these energy and ley lines are and vortexes. So if you want to dig even more into this, I certainly will, because I'm so fascinated by it. But you can explore more of what her work is and who she suggests people connect with. She refers to Robert Kuhn in 1967 talking about the chakras on the planet as well, was a reference she gave. But anyway, so she talks about this biomagnetic energy field of Earth, and really speaks to the fact that nature is conscious, Mother Earth is conscious, and but she's also always changing, and she's always adapting. She's alive. Mother Earth is alive, and so these lines can move. These vortex points can move. Now they don't always move, but like again, it's a living conscious being. Planet Earth is. It's you know it is regenerating itself. It is evolving itself, etc. So, and actually, one other thing I want to say about Daya Dev that she introduced to me that I hadn't heard this before, and I just think it's so profound, was this notion of sacred activism. And she basically, describes it as us being consciously aware of and consciously and intentionally connecting with Gaia, with nature, with Mother Earth, to really right and correct our relationship with planet Earth, which is, I mentioned in um a prior episode with Mount Shasta and Gaia and Mother Earth, but I just loved how she spoke about this, and this idea of a revolution of consciousness, remembering our connection to Earth and Mother Earth and places on Earth, but I'll get there in a minute. Okay, so scooting on a little bit. So again, back to ley lines, vortexes. All right, what does it all mean? Basically, what that all means is at these vortexes, there are these highly concentrated energy spots where vortexes can have positive or negative energy, like beneficial or non-beneficial is what I refer to it as, beneficial or non-beneficial energy in these different vortex points. So just so people are aware, um, which is why you want to be mindful when you're going to vortexes. You want to make sure that you have somebody who is able to discern and determine, is this energy, like, what's the quality of the energy? Is it a beneficial quality? Is it non-beneficial? So for example, I do dowsing. Dowsing is also, people have heard about a pendulum before. It's actually like one form of dowsing, but the real practice is dowsing, and there's dowsing rods, and that has been used for a long time to locate sources of water. And so I had initially into it through just using a pendulum when I was very young. I was drawn to it, and pendulums respond to me very easily. And um, so, anyways, though then I, started using actual dowsing rods. And so the point is that you want to make sure that the energy is okay there, which is, so it's good to go with somebody who's able to assess for that. Now you can feel energy. I mean, we're also all energetic beings. So you could feel, how do you feel at a certain place? If you don't feel great at a certain place, then probably, that's not right energetically for you, or there's non-beneficial energy there. But again, it sometimes makes sense to go with somebody. So these vortex spots are, there's there is a concentration of high energy there, and what that can do is create a couple of things. If it's at higher frequencies, well, higher dimensions. Well, before I go there, actually, so you're talking about places where there can be energetic portals, which means that, I mean, you could talk about some time travel. I mean, you could talk about traveling to some extent at some of these portals. What we're also talking about is places of higher frequency. And so, for example, Shasta certainly is a place of fifth dimension frequency. So this higher frequency where you have a higher perspective, you're more detached from the mundane, three-dimensional world concerns, thinking, issue, the 3D matrix kind of stuff doesn't really, affect you as much because you're able to see much more and beyond that. So, for example, when I was at Mount Shasta, I certainly connected with both Palladian and Arcturian, both of which I have, you know, a connection, of either coexisting or previous life connection to. So, because beings that are of higher frequency, essentially, in order for us to be able to communicate or connect with them, we have to get ourselves to a higher frequency. Okay. So they can only bring themselves down so much. We have to raise ourselves up to their frequency in order to communicate. So when you're at these places that are, all when you're within them and the area itself, is higher energy, the separation between the dimensions is much less and you're closer to higher dimensions. Now, what also can happen when you leave these kinds of places, so for example, after I spent quite some time at the higher frequencies, really right on the mountain, those days when I came down from it or would leave that, area, I felt incredible like fatigue and tiredness, etc. because you're getting so much energetic downloads and we as humans just like on the day to day usually aren't exposed to and aren't used to. So, um, and for anybody who goes to any of these places or has experienced it, I mean, there's just no doubt. Like, yeah, sure, we can't see the energy, but you feel it, like you can feel it. And I certainly am very, very attuned to energy, but even people who are less attuned, like I met people who have no understanding or thinking or knowledge or, wouldn't even necessarily maybe believe in this kind of stuff. And I met them at Shasta and they, couldn't stop speaking about how profound they felt the energy was. And even them, like, yeah, I really noticed, like, wow, there's such a difference here. And um, I noticed feeling better here and, these kinds of things. So when you experience it, it's really undeniable. What else? Why else did I want to bring this up and like just inform people about the networks on Earth and that it's again a live being, alive. It is an alive and conscious being, is because also we are attracted to certain places, and sometimes we can be attracted to certain places for certain reasons. And this is shifting a little bit, but you also could be attracted, and this goes back, I guess, to what Deb was saying about this sacred activism, this revolution of consciousness, this remembering potentially of your past existences, on Earth, because in this Aquarian age that we're in right now, like we all came back here, we reincarnated, we chose to come into this life now for a specific reason. As I, if you haven't, if you're like, what the heck are you talking about, Chloe? Then go back to the beginning of the podcast and read the Aquarian era, the real deal. Because we are on we were living at a time that's changing over, that's transitioning, that's transforming. We're having this is a different time. Some people are really, really going to raise in consciousness and really going to ascend during this life. So we really have some people, some of us are going to, be going down a path of raising the frequency, going towards ascension. And then the other folks are going to stay kind of in the third dimensional world. And there could, could be, um, there'll be a bit of a split here potentially. And So there is this remembering though that a lot of us are experiencing in this lifetime specifically. And I've mentioned other episodes about Atlantis and such, and this idea of, oh, okay, we came back at this certain time makes sense. And I've been hearing this more and more from various sources that, like, whatever happened in Atlantean times, like a lot of us probably are, existed in Atlantean times, Lemuria, etc. And we are coming back to rectify, to, determine how we're going to do things differently, ideally, in this time that we are at now. So I'll just leave that for now. All this being said is that if you are drawn to certain areas, there might be a reason why. And I encourage you to follow them. And so, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know about these UVB, I didn't know about this unified vector geometry that is, the name of this system that maps all these grids on our, I didn't know necessarily about vortexes to this extent, but I had been called to multiple places that are very well known as vortexes, I have come to find. So, for example, when I was much younger, I was called and went to Greece. I've been to Jerusalem, Israel. I was, in the past few years, a couple years ago, to Egypt, all along the River Nile, but then also to the Sinai area, and I ended up on the St. Catherine, where Moses gave the Ten Commandments. And there's, a lot of other history there and these sorts of things. Sedona, Arizona, ended up going there, Shasta. So I really have been drawn and called to a bunch of different places um, that really are huge energetic vortexes and spots. So I certainly have been called to these areas, but people can be called for all sorts of reasons. It's also, you might have a calling to a place because it might help you to remember, a prior experience, and maybe there's prior wisdom that is important to come through for you from prior existences, etc., that could be important for this life. And so I just want to bring that up because you could be attracted, if you're attracted to certain areas, trust that, follow your instinct. There's a reason. And I encourage you to pursue it. I encourage you to visit it with the mindset of, like, okay, maybe there is something more to this. Maybe it is something that, like, okay, my inner self, the source within me is guiding me there because, there is a deeper reason, something I'm meant to remember. Where else does this kind of stuff come up in terms of geography? There's also astrocartography, which is basically, from an astrological standpoint, there are certain places on the earth that you are more conducive to your energy, essentially. And your energy may do better in certain areas on the planet living there than other places on the planet. So that you can check out at astro.com. I'll put that in the show notes as well. So that's another thing for people to be mindful of with this grid. Like, energy is important and we're energetic beings. So, finding places that are you align with the energy is important, can be really important for well-being. Then I was thinking about, like, feng shui, for example. That's another way that, to think about you, how do we use energy and, like, energetic grids and positioning, and with, north, south, east, and west, and what those represent. And so that's another way that you can kind of work with the positioning of things in order to enhance your own well-being through using energetic alignment. And just okay, the final couple notes, I just want to highlight this, like for anybody who's like, oh, this is foo-foo or woo-woo, which, by the way, woo-woo is so outdated. It's really woo-wow, right? But anyways, ancient civilizations absolutely knew about the ley lines of the planet, were well versed in them. That's where they built pyramids on, for example, or they built certain civilizations, knowing of and aware of the ley lines and where certain energy forces were, and the kundalini of the planet and the different chakras of the planet. So on top of like just in general vortexes and stuff. So like the big powers that be, like that's where they built cities, they built military bases. And I'm, using past tense here, but guess what? Modern military, governments have placed military bases very strategically and have placed government buildings very strategically. So, for example, in the US, Washington, D.C. is built according, like, in alignment with the constellation of Virgo. That's what it was built on. So, for those of you who've been to DC and like the roads are so wild and which like people often get really lost there, it's because it literally is built on a constellation. Like it's also supposed to be confusing. That energy, how they're directing you, and this is from this Matrix Unveiled, and the host on there used to work for the US government. So I'm trusting what she's saying here is that like they have you going counterclockwise in the city of Washington D.C. So it's like reversing the energy that is the natural flow, which we would actually want to be going clockwise. And so it like intentionally is creating confusion for people who are driving in that city. So, and then you also think about like there are certain places, certainly within the US, and I'm sure other places where there is known vortex activity, known portal activity, known like high concentration of energy, and the government blocks it off, like we're not able to access it. So I'm just putting this stuff out there. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to promote conspiracy stuff or what have you. And I mean, at the same time, I want people to be able to differentiate what's what. Again, ancient civilizations, of which a lot of the powers that currently be know of and are aware of the knowledge of the ancient civilizations, they knew this stuff. They were creating civilizations and in certain areas because of the energy. Now, what I'm saying is that our modern powers that be also are aware of this. Don't let them fool you to think that they don't know this stuff. I mean, it's not like every single person knows, but there are some powers that be that certainly do and that don't want to be sharing those this information, this wisdom, the locations of these things, whatever, because, people, they're wanting to protect the power. And the more that we are awakened beings, the less that there can be power over us, right? Because we realize that actually we each individually have our own power and our own creators, etc. And so I just wanted to share that so that people have more information. Maybe this will spark your interest a little bit more. Pay attention to some of that energy. And let me know if there's anything in this episode that you'd like to hear more about, because, I'm really interested in all this stuff and probably will keep studying it. And I want to again leave you again with Dia Deb, and she was talking about the sacred activism of us returning to our connection to nature, to Mother Earth, which will invariably, that will bring us back to our connection with our own selves, the own source within us, our own God spark, our own abilities and capabilities, and our own unique gifts and what we're supposed to be stepping into fully, in this life, and knowing that. And also, and that feeds into really this revolution of consciousness where we're waking up and remembering our past, and existences, and remembering some of why we're here, and can remember the wisdom our wisdom from multiple lifetimes, and use it to create what we want, and get where we want to be going in this lifetime and this existence. So don't forget about Mother Earth, connect with her. Like everything is alive and so wise. Trees, rocks, etc. You spend time, you try to connect with them, she will respond, she will connect back, and she can teach you so much. So, y'all, and I forgot to mention that if you're interested in hearing more about my journeys on Mount Shasta and my actual experiences, literally recording from portals and the vortexes, please check out my Instagram at the.sourcewithin. And I have videos there. I also have a video on YouTube, also the dot source within, my YouTube channel, where I share the energy from Mount Shasta, and I actually vicariously give you some of that beautiful, beautiful root chakra vortex energy. And I actually am able to send it out remotely to you. So please check that stuff out for more. And if you'd like to see me dowsing as well, or a recording of that, that's also will be on my Instagram as well. So just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you so much for being here on The Source Within, and I look forward to seeing you back here next time. Speaking of connecting with Mother Earth through connecting with the earth and by going to certain locations on Earth that are really incredible energetic spots and vortexes, I will be co-hosting a retreat this September 19th through 25th in Teotihuacan, Mexico, with a colleague of mine, Andrea Blythe. September 19th through September 25th, during which time there is the fall equinox, which is an incredible time when we are transitioning between summer and fall, and a time for balance and harmony. So in speaking about ley lines and such, and profound history and connecting with the earth, by putting our feet on the ground in certain areas of the planet, we actually can download and absorb incredible information from those areas. So Teotihuacan is this incredible pyramid complex. There are 3 pyramids. One is the Temple of Quetzalcoatl, which is an incredibly sacred temple, also known as the Pyramid of the Sun, basically in the Pyramid of the Moon. But there are 3 temples in total, and actually, it's really fascinating. The pyramid complex outside of Mexico City in Teotihuacan actually mirrors the configuration of the temples in Giza in Egypt. And in fact, similarly to the Giza pyramids in Egypt, the configuration of the temples in Teotihuacan are actually combinations of Pleiades, Taurus, and Orion constellations. And in looking at the ley lines of Teotihuacan, the angles and the ley lines are very similar to those also of Jerusalem. So there is this connection basically between ancient Egypt, or the pyramids built there, between the Mount in Jerusalem, and then between these incredible pyramids in Teotihuacan, Mexico. So anyways, what does all that mean? It means it's a really incredible, powerful experience to be able to spend time on the equinox in a very powerful sacred place that will allow for a lot of healing, a lot of growth, a lot of transformation. So I hope that y'all are interested in this. I am certainly so excited for it. And if you'd like more information, check out my website at the-sourcewithin.com. There's a link there where you can access more information about this retreat. And I really look forward to having some of you, or all of you, join myself and Andy there.